Hello, everyone. Dr. Alex Schlo here with another episode of the Row Room Assisted Living Podcast. Thank you for taking the time to join us on this podcast. This episode is going to be a little bit different. Okay, this is going to be a recording from the Row Room Assisted Living Mastermind. So, this is an example of the value packed calls that we have in the Row Room Assisted Living Mastermind. So, this is going to be a little bit different. Sound quality might be a little bit more poor. There are some questions that are asked throughout the presentation, but this is an incredible opportunity to learn how you can pass state inspections and secure your facility through state inspections by Kimberly Rodriguez. And she is absolutely incredible with an enormous amount of experience. She also previously worked as a state inspector, so she knows exactly how you can pass your state inspections. And she gives a ton of helpful tips and tricks along the way. So if you loved what you heard in this call, if you want to be surrounded by a community of folks who are holding each other accountable, who are doing huge things in the assisted living space, who are opening their first or their next assisted living home, then maybe the Row Room Assisted Living Mastermind is for you. So without any further ado, let's get started with today's call with Kimberly Rodriguez on how to pass state inspections.
Welcome to the Row Room Assisted Living Podcast with your hosts, Charlie Cameron and Alex Schlo. This is your go-to show for cutting-edge insights from industry leaders in residential assisted living. Whether you're ready to launch your own assisted living business or looking to invest in this fast-growing, high-impact sector, we are here to equip you with the tools, strategies, and confidence you need to succeed. Get ready to ride the silver tsunami and change the future of senior care. Now on to today's show.
So without any further ado, I will turn it over to you, Kimberly.
Thank you so much for allowing us to be on again today. I wanted to be able to share some information in terms of how do you prepare for your state inspections. So in terms of your annual surveys, okay, everybody knows that they're coming, or your initial inspections. And then in terms of course, everybody's getting nervous. So then you have the inspector that's walking in. This is the time when you have everybody that's like on the walkie-talkie, like whatever the code words that you're saying. Eagles landed or goose in the bush. I don't know, whatever you use. So I used to work at a big box facility and we used to say Eagles landed. So in terms of inspectors, so inspectors are intrusive by nature. So it makes it uncomfortable for the entire operation. So the easiest way to get adjusted and get acclimated to it is for you to be able to conduct mock inspections. So mock inspections are going to be you running through a similar inspection that's going to be example just like your regular annual initial inspection. So there's a couple of different inspections in various different states. Some have your life safety inspections, you have your initial inspections, annual, your complaint investigations, you have all of your different inspections. Now, one thing remains consistent. And even though I'm going to be sharing the information for a presentation I did for the Virginia Assisted Living Association, I'm going to still guide you in terms of if you're in various different states where you will find the information. But this is the same presentation I did for Virginia Assisted Living Association. Now, in terms of information and where it's going to be located, then once I reference it, then you'll be able to go to your state inspection and our state website to be able to find it. All right, so the first page that we have on here of the slide. So just securing your facility inspection or securing your actual inspection through state inspections. Okay, so inspection protocol. Let's talk about inspection protocol. Every state has an inspection protocol. Most people don't know that the inspection protocol exists. However, it's available. And it just depends on which way or what is the process and the method for you to actually be able to secure it. Many different states, the inspection protocol is on their public website. Yeah. When you go and look for it, it's not going to say inspection protocol. That's an internal language in terms of what inspectors are using. But let's take a look at the document if you have had an inspection. Let's take a look at the document that you received during the inspection. And it gives you, some of them give you little boxes and check, it says the different areas that your inspector has looked at. And that's what they're going to give you for you to sign when they're leaving. That could be one way. If you can't find it on your inspection protocol on your website, the easiest thing to do is to ask your inspector because it is a public document. It is there for that because the main purpose of inspection protocol is to maintain consistency across the state. So every state has an inspection protocol to ensure that every facility is receiving the same type of inspection. So one, go to your state website. You can type in and look for your state protocol and see what the word is or what is actually called. Or two, you can ask your inspector. Okay. Your inspector knows that is a public document. Now, because sometimes they don't want to give it to you, they may not respond. If they don't respond, the third way to get it is by your FOIA, Freedom of Information. It's just 2 or 3 pages. It's going to be free. Go ahead and submit a request for a FOIA, asking that you want a copy of the state inspection protocol. So you have to be very specific. So you have to talk about, I want a copy of the most recent state inspection protocol. It'll take between 7 and 10 days for you to get a copy of that. Okay. All right. So now that we've talked about inspection protocols, about how you can receive it, and then also understanding that inspection protocols are to maintain consistency across the board. Now, that's not meaning that the protocol that we are not able to deviate from it. I try to get people to make sure that they understand when you're inspector, if we deviate from protocol, there's a reason why. So it's apparently we've come in, somebody has said something and we're going to deviate. We come in and we see something and we deviate. However, inspection protocols, if everything goes as planned, then there's a protocol to follow. Okay. All right. Any questions before I get moving in terms of inspection protocol, how to find it? So email your inspector, look on your website, or request a FOIA. Okay. Okay. So that's the information I give you, how you can actually locate your inspection protocol. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, let's go to the next. So your inspection protocols. Which one? This should be the next one. Okay. And we'll go to the next one because this just goes over what I just shared. Almost probably should have. So here, let's talk about your inspection protocol and the components. So if you've had your inspection, you all know, okay, you have your entrance, you're going to have a tour, you have your interviews, you have observation, documentation review, and your exit. Now, understand most of this is not always formal. So if it's a complaint investigation, they may not come in and sit down and have an entrance meeting. If it's something that they want to quickly go and access, then they're just going to come in and say, hey, I'm here, I'm going to be taking a look at XYZ, and they'll go straight to it. You need to ensure that you have someone that's going to quickly catch up with them to make sure that you see exactly what the inspector sees. Now, that's in terms of complaint. Let's just talk about your regular inspections, your initial inspections, your annual inspections. So your initial inspection, annual inspections, we're going to have the protocol. We're going to have an entrance exam. The inspector is going to come in. Now, keep in mind, the point that the inspector arrives to that building, that's the inspection starts. So when they get out of the car, we're taking a look from the outside. What's on the outside of the building? Is the building in good repair? Is the yard in good repair? Is there any clutter? So as we're walking and going into the actual inspection, that's when we're being visual and we're observing those things. And if there's something that could be cited, then we're asking at that time, are you supposed to have screens on your windows? Are they missing? Is any windows cracked or broken? Now, when we come in, we're going to ask for whoever the main point, the manager or anything like that. And we're going to sit down and we're going to ask in terms of, and let them know what we're going to do. Okay. So I'm here today. I'm going to be doing an initial inspection. Now, make sure that you take note because this is something that happens many times and people don't catch it. You're going to really need to listen to what type of inspection that the inspector is saying that they are conducting. It makes a world of a difference. Are they conducting your initial inspection? Is it an annual inspection, a complaint inspection, or something else? The reason why you want to keep up with it is because inspectors, even though inspectors are assigned a caseload, there's confusion that happens on the background if the information is not put into the system. So it could occur that you end up having multiple different inspectors completing the same exact inspection. And many times people don't really catch it. They'll just say, oh, my inspector came here 3 times in the last month. And I'm like, that's harassment. That doesn't occur. Because if you receive violations, we have to give you an opportunity for you to correct it. So make sure that you pay attention closely what the actual inspection is. If you see it's repeat inspections of the same inspection, that's something that you need to question and challenge. Okay, so your entrance, and then we have our tour. When we come in and we're touring, we have protocol, but are we going to deviate from our protocol? It's based on what we see. So people say, how do we know what records the inspector is going to be pulling? There's a certain number that we are going to pull, and we're going to get to that slide because everything is based on ratio, and that is consistent across the state. However, we are going to request records if there are things that we see that require us to be able to deviate. So when we go through the tour, we're walking, we're peeking in rooms, or we're going into resident rooms. One, we're gonna follow anything that's a foul odor, smell, anything that just doesn't smell fresh. We're gonna follow it. Once we follow it, we're gonna go into the room with the person, and we're gonna say, "Hey, there's a smell in here." We were talking about this the other day, in terms of if an inspector comes in and they say, "Hey, there's a smell." Smells are subjective because if you're from a different culture, maybe things smell different to you. So when I come in, the way the regulation reads is a foul odor. Now, how do we make that violation stick? Because you come in, hey, I smell something. What do I smell? I'll look at you and I'll say, I don't smell anything. So I don't smell anything. Maybe I had COVID and I can't smell. I don't know. Maybe I don't smell it. However, now how do we make that violation stick? One, we're going to ask somebody or the person with us, what's that smell? Now, if that person says, oh, Mr. Triceri likes to hoard his Depends and the hoard his Depends and the drawers. He puts them in the closet and he sticks them everywhere. So he tells me that about Mr. Triceri. I'm in the room. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the drawers. I'm going to go to the closets. I'm going to see if I actually see Mr. Triceri hoarding his used Depends. If I do, okay, not necessarily there is a violation. That's not necessarily. But one, I've identified what the smell is. Two, staff member directed me, so the staff member knows. Three, let me look at your individualized service plan. If everybody knows that he hoards his Depends and there's going to be a smell, what are we doing to ensure that we reduce the smell and the odor? So if I go to the actual individualized service plan and I don't see where anyone has taken action, then that is your violation. So the violation is going to be based on what you say, because violations are subjective, right? Because we come in, I smell something, you don't smell it. However, I smell it and you say, oh, yes, this is always the case. And that's how violations occur. Because, oh, yeah, he's always done this and this. People say too much. I tell them, I was like, if you're walking with the inspector, most of the time the question is, hey, I'm not sure. In terms of what's that smell, I'm not sure. But if it's, oh, it got to be something. I'm not sure because I don't smell it. I'm just not sure. Your tour, that's when we're going to deviate. Okay, we're going to observe every area. Now, inspectors are intrusive. So let's say if we're going to do the medication observation, we give you enough time to make mistakes because we make you uncomfortable. So we're going to observe you maybe 10 times, making sure that you can complete the task accurately, at least 50% of it. Let's see, the next one we have observations, documentation review. So documentation review is going to be based on one, your census, as we'll go down further, but also it's going to be based on what we see. And then we have our exit. Your exit is where we're going to sit down and we're going to go over everything that we found during this inspection. Now, understand while you're doing your inspection, if your inspector finds something, like we've been there an hour and I find, hey, I don't see a history and physical. I don't see a history and physical on this record. You have until I leave the facility before I conduct the exit to provide it to me. Okay. That is nothing that anyone is going to tell you. However, that is what you do. You have until I give you an exit form to provide it to me. Okay. However, if you say, I don't see a history and physical in the record, I'm using your statement that you said, you don't see it. However, if I tell you there is no history and physical and I'm there another 6 hours, you need to make sure you take those 6 hours to go and dig and search and find it and be able to provide it to me. But if you come back and you say, we don't have it, then you can't come back to me later and then provide it. But just understand, if we see it, but if you provide it before we leave, then it's accepted. Once the exit is conducted and finished, then you cannot provide any more documentation. We'll go to the next slide. Okay. So in terms of for this one, because this is Virginia, we're just looking at the various different regulations. I know a lot of times people do not read the regulations. However, in terms of our client, I say this is the easiest thing that you can do. Even though you're not going to read the regulations and say it's like 200, 300 pages, you're not going to read it. The easiest thing that you can do is the way that we give our policies and procedures. It's a document that you can download onto your computer. You can click at the top and do a search for whatever the requirement is. Staff training. How many hours of staff training do we need? Click it in and do a search. When you're having your inspection, that's the same exact thing that you need to do. So the inspector comes in and we say, hey, Chris, Mr. Triceri, I'm looking for your face sheet. I'm looking for Louisa's face sheet. So Chris is new. Chris is looking all through the record. He doesn't see Louisa's face sheet. He comes back to me and he says, hey, I don't see a face sheet. Now, according to regulation, that terminology is not called face sheet. It can be called whatever you want. What you need to ensure is that you're asking the inspector on your face, what exactly are you looking for or specific? Can you please guide me to the regulation that you are referring to? Because the face sheet, we know what information is on the face sheet or whatever you call it. It's your new resident information. It's going to give you personal, social data, all of that information. Now, understanding 9 times out of 10, all of that information is already within your record. It may not be on one sheet, but it's within your record. So in terms of a face sheet, we don't have to have a face sheet. However, do we have the person's social? I'm sure we have it. Their birth date. Do we have their personal background, their contact information? May not be on one sheet, but it's all throughout the record. So that's something you want to ensure. You go to your regulation to see specifically what it is asking for. Inspectors, because new inspectors don't know, they're saying, hey, I'm here, bring me all of your records. Don't go and bring them all of your records. And that's what many people do. Bring me all your records. Okay, they come out with this big cart and they bring all of their records out. However, there's a protocol. So your protocol does not include all records. So you need to ask your inspector, when you say records, what specifically can I provide for you? You want to provide your inspector only what they are asking for. Because the more you provide, the more opportunities we have to see more situations, and we're going to continue to dig. All right, next slide. Okay. All right, so this is just in general across the board. After your entrance meeting has been completed, your designated staff person, who's often going to be the administrator, is going to complete the tour, which is going to help you assess the compliance of a whole bunch of different things, which I just went over. We're going to be talking about staffing. I'm going to be looking at your staff interaction with your residents. I'm going to be looking at if we come in for a complaint, are your staff awake overnight? And I will tell you, there are so many inspections. There are so many inspections and complaints that I have done overnight. Now, yes, inspections typically are going to occur during your work hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, typically. However, if there's a complaint that occurs, let's say that the complaint occurs at 9:00 p.m. We're going to come at 9:00 p.m. If it occurs at 2 a.m., we're coming at 2 a.m. Ensure that you're doing random visits to ensure that your staff are really doing what they're supposed to be doing, because you don't always know that a complaint has went in. There's been so many times that the complaint is residents had a fall, staff were not responsive. So I go to the facility at 2 a.m. Guess who opens the front door for me? Not the staff. It's going to be the residents. The resident come, they open the door. Oh, come on in. I come on in and I'm like, okay, where's your staff at? They're like, oh, they don't even know what staff means. They're like, staff, what are you talking about? Okay, where's your staff? I'm looking at all the different rooms, finding your staff. I go to your medication room, or your break room, which contains the medication, and your staff is in there sleeping. So I just walk on in. I open up all the drawers that are unlocked. Your staff finally wakes up and looks at me and says, oh, what are you doing here? And I was like, don't mind me. Go ahead, back to sleep. Don't mind me. So you want to ensure that you're doing those random inspections, because there's so much that occurs overnight. Make sure you pop in. If they need to be awake, because sometimes they don't need to be awake. If they need to be awake, you need to make sure that they are actually awake. Because if your residents are opening those doors at night, then you guarantee that there's going to be an inspector that's going to be coming. Let's go to the next. This should be number 9. 15. Okay. So the tour is going to talk about, let's talk about in terms of what regulation says. It says that this is across the states, that your facility needs to be in good repair. Good repair. Think about what good repair is. Inspectors cannot tell you how to fix it. If they do, be cautious, because I have found where inspectors tell you how to fix it, they watch you fix it, and they want to write that that you fixed it in front of them, and it's not going to look good. They should not tell you how to fix it. Now, if I come up and say, hey, your door is missing a door handle, it's broken, your window is missing a glass, it's not up to me to tell you how to fix it. Now, what is good in good repair? What's the function of the window? The window is to keep the cold out and keep the hot in, gives you visual light for regulations and things like that. However, how you fix it is how you fix it, okay? Because I've seen some extreme ways that people have fixed it. I have seen someone, it's crazy, I've seen someone take a shattered window and I don't know, make it into a Mozart thing and put glue on it and put it back together. However, it still served the function. Because one, if you touched it, it was not anything in terms of, it was safe, it served its purpose. I couldn't say that the window was not in good repair because the way they made the window look was more so decorative. So in terms of good repair, it's just making sure that it serves its function. If it's broken, take it out. If it's broken, fix it. Let's go to the next. Okay, we're going to be observing activities. In your activities area, we're going to look at what you have posted on your activities board. Now, keep in mind, if your activities are posted, if you're required to post them by regulation, whatever activity that you have going on at that time, you need to be conducting. Now, let's say that you have residents who truly don't want to do that activity. You got resident council or something like they don't want to do it. In terms of that, you are to encourage them to participate. So I want to ensure that at least you encourage them. If it says 1 o'clock, we're going to be doing, I don't know, Blues Clues. At 1 o'clock, Blues Clues. I'm coming in at 1 o'clock and I'm just going to see that someone is offering and encouraging residents to come watch Blues Clues. They can say no, that they don't want to, and that's fine, but you've done your job that you need to. Also, with the activities, if it's something that you have posted and put on your activity board, you need to ensure that you actually have the material. So a lot of times people will say, hey, we're going to be doing bingo, but they have no bingo cards or they have nothing in examples of bingo. Make sure whatever your activity you're going to conduct that you truly have the supplies. Let's go next. Okay, the other pieces in terms of observation. Now, we're going to be looking at staff interaction. If something doesn't look the same way a certain staff member is providing a transfer, if the way that a certain person is providing a resident meal, or the way that they're preparing it, if something doesn't look in terms of when we're observing, this is when we're going to go back to staff training. Okay, have your staff been trained on what they're doing for that resident? Okay, resident has oxygen. Have the staff been trained? Resident needs transfers. The resident has wound care. Now, wounds, we typically don't deal with wounds. However, there still needs to be training on wound care. It's not saying you're doing anything with the wound care. It's basically saying in an event that the wound is soiled, what should the staff do? Staff are to call home health agency. That's it. That's the training. So you just want to ensure that whatever specific service, home health agencies or special diets, transfers, anything, that your staff have the specific training for it. Because if we come and see and something just does not look, then we're going to go straight to your staff training, which one is deviating from your protocol, from your basic annual training. We're going to be asking you for all of this additional training. Okay. Let's go to the next. Okay. All right. So this is our census. All right. So this is our census. I'm going to show you. So census goes on based on 2 different things. We come to the facility, you've got 16 residents. So you will find on your inspection protocol, it's going to tell you if you have 16 residents, what's our census going to be? So it could be that we're going to observe 8 out of 16 records. If you have 10 staff, it could be that we're going to observe 5 out of 10. It's the same with your medications. So you got 30 medications. We're going to observe 20. That is going to be directly provided in your inspection protocol because consistency has to be across the board. So I can't go to your facility and check 50 records, and I can't go to your facility and check only 2 records. It must be consistent. So it's found within your inspection protocol. Now, some people will say, hey, I only had 10 residents, but the inspector came and she checked all 10 records. The question is, what caused her to deviate from the protocol? Now, medication errors, definitely. Medication is something that is extreme high level risk. So in terms of if I'm observing a medication pass, I've observed 4 medications passes with 4 different residents. None of them look, I will continue to see other different areas. If we see something that's widespread at that point, 9 times out of 10, if it's that bad, then we're probably likely going to be calling some additional supports to be coming in. So probably that's where you're probably going to be having APS is going to be contacted or something if it's that severe and if it's so widespread, if it's dealing with medication. So your inspection protocol is going to tell you in terms of documentation review, how many records, how many medications, how many resident records, staff records. Okay. So the observation of the medication pass. Now, you want to ensure this is the most critical piece that you want to ensure that your staff are comfortable with, because this is where most error occurs as for your medication pass. Now, in terms of your medication pass, we're going to give them the opportunities from error because we know that they're nervous. But it's the whole piece of, are they hand washing? Are they sanitizing? Are they making sure that they are giving their medication to the resident at the time? Are they following infection control? So you want to ensure that your staff know what to do. If we're going into a resident rooms, they have prepared the medication. If they're using a medication cart, then they lock the cart back since it's in the hallway. If they go into the resident rooms and they give the resident the medication, if they go and pick up some trash that has the pins in and seal it because they're getting ready to take it to the trash can, did they come back and wash their hands? Did they put on gloves? What did they do? How many times did your staff use hand sanitizer in between passing medication as opposed to washing hands? That's all within your infection protocol. How many times are they going to do hand sanitizer before we wash? So those are things that we want to ensure that your staff are comfortable with, because that is the most critical piece of where most errors occur. So in terms of, there's been so many incidents, medication falls. What do your staff do when the medication falls? Make sure that they know exactly what to do. When you're looking in your medication cart or your medication, wherever you keep them, make sure your expired medications are not kept with the medications that are active. Make sure that you always have PRN medication on site, your as needed medications. If your resident has a medication that is ordered as PRN as needed, you need to, one, if they're not using it and you don't have it always on site, you need to, one, ask the physician if they can DC it, discharge it, or you need to, one, always ensure that it's there. Even if it expires, you get rid of it and replace it with a new one. Okay. Go to the next. We'll go to the next. So that's making sure you're observing the 5. So ensure that your residents, that your staff knows person, time, medication, making sure that you're administering it the route that the physician has ordered that it is supposed to be administered. All right, we will go to the next. So in terms of your inspection protocol, it's going to show you specifically this document here that you have. Different states have different protocol forms. You want to, like I said, you're going to either go to your website, find the inspection protocol. 2, you're going to ask your inspector for it. Now, also, many states are supposed to tell you at the exit the following steps. They're supposed to, 1, provide you a copy of the form at the exit. For instance, you have Texas and you have a couple of other states. They have to provide you a copy of the actual protocol, a blank copy when they leave. So they, hey, this is your inspection protocol. 2, they have to tell you if your inspector is doing something that is unethical, this is the number that you have to call to report. Because inspections protocols are consistent across the state to ensure that people are not being targeted. So you may find sometimes inspectors won't share that information. However, they're obligated to. And that's something you just need to, in terms of, you can always request a FOIA. You can always go above your inspector and ask whoever the director is or regional manager for some additional information and clarification. Let's go to the next. Okay, so your documentation review. Now, in terms of documentation review, don't look at these specific numbers of Virginia. But in general, the information I want to share in reference to your documentation review. Now, one, making sure that you have the document is one piece that's important. The piece that's more important is the time frame that the document is supposed to be provided. So let's say that you have a resident assessment. Let's say that it's required that you have a resident assessment prior to moving, prior to within 14 days of admission. Make sure that you follow those dates down to a T, because even though you may have provided the document, if you did not provide it in the time frame, that is the bigger error. Now, in terms of, in terms of TB screenings, those are important pieces. Sex offender screenings, those can be high risk violations if they are not completed in the time frames. Now, let's say that you have a resident that moves in on March 1st. However, we didn't get all of the documentation together by March 10th. That's something that truly, a lot of it, we can't go back and correct it, because when it comes from the physician's office for history and physical, the date is going to be out of compliance. The signature is going to be out of compliance. When we run a sex offender screening, it's automatically out of compliance. So you want to ensure that you capture, if it's something that needs to be done before the person moves in, make sure you have it done before they move in, because those are high risk violations if something is not appropriate. For instance, if you're supposed to do criminal records check for your staff and you did it completely late, and we find out that this person had buried crimes that cannot be allowed in assisted living, and they are actually there working with residents, but we found out later. Okay, if something like that occurs, then it's going to be a high risk violation. Okay, next slide. Okay, we'll go to the next. Okay. So in terms of your staff records, that's going to be the same thing. The best way. So your inspection protocol, what we do is, that's how we use and create our tickler. So we can, what we said last time, it's not called tickler.
Checkbox?
Checkbox. There you go. So we create a document that we put in the front of your record. So you got a staff record. And what we'll do is, we'll know, here are all the actual regulation numbers for Virginia. Well, whatever your state is, find all of the regulations for our staff records. What you're going to put in the beginning of your staff record, your check boxes, to make sure that every time that you have a new staff that is hired, that we have everything covered and that you check it off as the time frame. Okay, do we have the staff person's criminal records check? Did we complete their orientation? How many hours of training do they have to have before they can actually work and put hands on a resident? In terms of anything that's needed, TB screenings, et cetera. We're going to put that on your check boxes to ensure compliance. At the top of that checkbox form, you are going to put that employee's date of hire, because everything in that record follows the date of hire. So staff training, date of hire, don't do it January to December. Do it from their date of hire within the 12 months of compliance. So you want to use those checklists and those check boxes, and that is how we create it per state. We always have that information there so you can check it to make sure it's there, it's accurate, and that you don't miss anything. It is incredibly hard to maintain compliance if you've missed, for instance, criminal records check, background, you can't go back because the dates are going to actually print. It's not like you can go back and say, hey, I need it to be done before March 1st. If you run it on March 6th, it's March 6th and it's out of compliance. Let's go to the next. Let's go to the next. Okay. All right, so this is like our closeout. You want to keep in mind that every state does have the protocol. Keep in mind that protocol is for consistency across the board. However, deviation can occur based on what we see, based on anything else.
Hey there, sorry to interrupt this episode, but I've got a question for you. Do you want to share in the wealth and incredible returns from the highest demand asset class in real estate without the hassle of doing it all yourself, or at least not yet? Residential assisted living is booming and it's only gaining momentum. That's why we created an investment fund at Open Range Capital, so you can benefit without the heavy lifting. With the silver tsunami upon us, demand for assisted living is far outpacing supply, making this the can't miss opportunity for the next few decades. We provide access to fully vetted investment opportunities that are primed for success and ready to deliver strong passive returns. Don't wait, ride the wave with us. Visit theralroom.com/invest to partner with us on future investment opportunities. Again, that's theralroom.com/invest. We look forward to connecting with you. Now back to the episode.
You have family interviews, you have staff interviews, you have resident interviews. Those are all part of your actual inspection. Now, we don't sit down always with the resident one-on-one and ask them those questions. The way that I always do it is always easy at meal times. Walk in and chit chat with the residents, ask them general questions. And the residents, they're going to talk. They're going to say whatever they want to say. And that may cause me to deviate from my inspection. I'm going to chit chat and I'm going to talk with staff randomly. And I'm just going to ask them, like, we're having a good time. And we're just going to ask them general questions because I want to be comfortable with them. Now, based on what they say, I may have to deviate. Now, keep in mind, disgruntled employees are going to tell it all. So if you have a disgruntled employee, or if you think you have a disgruntled employee, you may want to take some action, because disgruntled employees in a workplace are not beneficial for anybody. Not beneficial for your resident, it's not beneficial for your facility. And at the time that your inspector comes, they want to make sure you receive some violations, or either they're going to give some sort of anonymous complaints. Disgruntled employees, disgruntled family members. Not saying that it's always going to be valid, but it's saying that we do have to conduct investigations on it. Yeah. And then the last piece you're going to have is your exit. Keep in mind, if you provide the documentation before exit, they must accept it. However, if I say you don't have a history and physical, and you come back in 5 minutes and we say we don't have a history and physical, and then you show up an hour later with the history and physical, that's a problem. So what you're going to do is, hey, I'm going to give me some time to find the history and physical. Now, I'm going to give you a last suggestion, my last 2 minutes. If you need time to find your history and physical, because when you have a change of ownership, new staff and new management, paperwork gets thrown all over the place. If you need more time to search for your history and physical, it is easier that you provide your inspector one document at a time to give you time to continue to look. So that's just a suggestion. That's something that I do. If I'm trying to still dig and I'm trying to look, I will keep giving my inspector one piece of paper, one document at a time, right? So we can continue to keep looking. Because likely you have the document or you have the information that's required on the document. You want to ensure that you can find it. Now, in terms of AOW, every inspection that we have done has been deficiency free. And the reason why is because you have the information. It just may not be on that accurate form. It's all within the record. You just have to be able to provide it and show it. Boom. Questions?
Awesome. Kimberly, bringing it again, showing us the insider baseball that we need to know. Thank you for that awesome presentation. I'm going to actually, as we speak, I'm going to type your email address into the chat so everybody knows how to reach you at actionowgroup.com. Okay, guys, that's how you can reach Kimberly, at that email down there. But I feel like, Kimberly, you're the teacher, and you're one of those teachers when you're going through school that is really cool and is like foot stomping the answers to the test questions that are going to be on the final exam. And we just need to be paying attention to when you do that. No, I think that was great. I did write down a few questions as we went, so I'll go through mine, and then I'm going to let anybody kind of pipe in or ask questions. There's a raise your hand button, or you can just go ahead and pipe in after I ask some of these questions. So I'll start with my first one. So every state has an inspection protocol to control the standard process. It was great to see your explanation of that or hear it. Which states are most stringent out of the 16 that you work with their protocol?
The most straightforward to work with is Florida. Florida, a lot of states have interpretation. Interpretation of the regulations are very straightforward. Florida's is excellent. Florida's, you can't confuse it, because in terms of staff training, then it was going to give you interpretation, staff training, inspector, walk in, open, look at staff training, or ask for some training sheet. It's very detailed. It doesn't leave anything up to anybody to actually just pick and choose what it is. It's very straightforward. So out of the 16, Florida is definitely the best because it's black and white. However, because it's black and white, you can't challenge it. There's really nothing to challenge. It's just there. But that is one of the easiest. Oh, so most difficult. Most stringent, Massachusetts. Most stringent, Massachusetts.
Well, you also mentioned you had to say Virginia is
okay,
pretty-
yeah. So yeah, Virginia as well. You have New Jersey. So you have a couple of states are very strict. So Virginia, New Jersey, New York are very strict. Massachusetts is just extremely hard. But in terms of actually stringent rules and regulations are going to be those ones where even though you have a 16, we have a lot of places that say, hey, we have a 16 and below or 17 and up. You have states that don't apply to that regulation. For instance, Virginia, doesn't matter if you have 16 and it doesn't matter if you have 600. The regulations do not change. So even if you have 16, you still need to have assisted living administrator's license. You have some states like Texas and the other ones that allow you the flexibility, 16 and below, 17 and up. Definitely, but Virginia, New Jersey, New York, those areas are pretty heavy.
That's good to know. And that checks out. Like as a real estate investor myself, the states that are more investor friendly is what we call it or landlord friendly versus the ones that are more tenant, gonna err on the side of the tenants for those types of laws. That kind of checks out with what you're saying. Makes sense. I asked another question. Is it common to run across a non-owner friendly inspector? So are there inspectors, is it common to find one that's like out to get you? Or are many of them like, okay, I know how this goes. They may not have all the documents away on their sheet because I came in at this time. I'm going to give them the time to get their documents ready, or are they going to have more of a gotcha attitude more of the time?
I'm trying to rephrase that in terms of finding an inspector that's not facility friendly.
I mean, is it frequent?
Okay. Yes, it's very common. Inspectors, because they know that I feel in my experience, because they know that they instill fear, they take advantage of it. I have seen most of the time you will see older inspectors that will cite things that are based on their preferences. And then you have older inspectors that have not really adapted to the change and are adjusted to the new regulations the way that they used to be. So they're so used to running things and doing it in the same method, the same way. So when you go and say something to them, then they don't want to be challenged. And I can tell you because I'm an inspector. I've been an inspector that if you've been one, it is very hard. It's uncomfortable to be challenged. You feel threatened when you're challenged. So you do a lot more pushing to dispute and to verify your case. And the reason why, as an inspector, when someone challenges an allegation or something that you've done incorrectly, it's not just affecting you, it's really affecting your outlook as a whole, like the inspector community. It's just saying because there is going to be a frequency that they're looking at. Okay, this is an inspector who they can't have their violations stick. This is an inspector, so we're looking at it like on the state side. This is an inspector who violations can't stick. This is an inspector who always has problems. So the goal for an inspector to prove that when you're doing your due diligence is to ensure that you've done enough evidence and that it's hard enough for the person not to challenge it. Since we're making it that hard, when you get pushback, or when they get pushback, or when they feel threatened, then that's a lot of times where you have those inspectors who, that they're not going to be friendly. They want to cause problems, or they want to cite you for things that shouldn't be cited. Like, cite you for a light bulb being out and cite you for a piece of lint on the ground. I've seen inspectors go through with an actual glove and cite because dust found like behind some drawer, some dresser. But they do it when they feel challenged, or they do it to intimidate. Now, like, because one, when you challenge, yes, it's going to cause a problem on behalf of the inspector, because it's going to show, can that inspector actually make their violation stick? And if they can't, then the state is liable. So it's a big deal if your inspector cannot make that violation stick. Now, the other piece of it that I try to explain to people, if you feel that someone is being aggressive to you, harassing you, or nitpicking on you, you can always request to have another inspector. Most people don't know that. You're going to actually go above them to their director, whatever. Tell them the situations that you have, and tell them that you feel like they're harassing you. And you're going to show them reason why, in terms of whatever they've said or whatever. You just want to make sure that you can provide that information.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and it totally checks out and makes sense that when somebody has a position of power, sometimes that gets to them and they want to take advantage. That reminds me of when I was going through military training and we had inspections in our barracks. The instructors would come in at an unknown time, but and they were going to find sand, let's say, because we were on the beach. They were going to find sand if they wanted to look for it. But if you could distract them, maybe have some baked goods or some tobacco waiting for them, and make it smell good make it a nice room to come into, then you can distract and persuade them to not be so nitpicky. I don't know if that would apply here, but let's see here.
Definitely.
Oh, I don't know if you said this as a joke, but you said 2 o'clock in the morning inspection. Is that real? How often do like late night inspections happen?
No, so it's not a joke. It's actually in your regulations in the code in every state. So if now inspectors are typically to conduct regular inspections for the 9 to 5 business hours, because we are supposed to do inspections that don't cause you to be distracted. So we're gonna do it on Monday, Friday when it's convenient for you. However, if it's something that's egregious that's happening at a certain time, then we have to go at that time, because we have to physically, like, there's no other way for us to be able to verify. For instance, I got a complaint for residents falling in the bathtub at night and being left in the tubs. So ambulance and hospitals were reporting that residents, I don't even know why it was the bathtub specifically, but that residents were being left in the bathtubs for extensive times overnight. And they can show in terms of how long there had been in the water and things like that. When I went to go do an inspection, we went with the team. There was 3 of us, because they had 3 different buildings. So when we went at 2 a.m. in the morning, and what was happening was, we call it where people are warehousing. We call it where you're warehousing. So you have all of your residents in these buildings, and you're watching them on cameras, but staff really aren't there. That's what we call it when you're warehousing people. So the staff truly wasn't there at nighttime. They had 3 separate buildings. And then they had one building that was meant for like staff, which was way off. But the staff truly were not actually in the buildings. They were sleeping like in the actual real house. So we all 3 had to go at that time. And yes, I've had another situation where residents were having extreme falls overnight, extreme severe falls overnight. And then the complaint was that the call bells were taking almost 45 minutes to an hour to be answered. So went at 2 o'clock in the morning. Anytime an inspector comes at 2 a.m., there's going to be 2 or 3 of them for safety. So we went in. Of course, the first person to open the door was the residents. They were just sitting down there. They opened the doors. And then we went in. So that was a prime example. We went in, we were looking for staff, couldn't find them. Finally went in, and the staff, she was asleep. She was asleep on the desk. The door was open. I just worked around her while she slept. I took photos of evidence while she slept. And then I went up to another floor, and there was the staff person tucked up under a blanket. She was like sitting in a chair by the elevator, had her hair covered with the blanket. And I asked her, I was like, excuse me. I was like, can you tell me what the staff are? She took it off. I was like, like, why are you bothering me? I said, oh, I was like, my bad. I took a photo of her. So those are the type of things that if they happen, if they're egregious, yes, then they have to come at that time. If you're not getting anything like that, then it's a good thing.
Generally, they don't come out that time.
No, generally
Unless
not.
they have a-
Yeah, if there's a reason, then they will. But generally, inspections are going to be when Monday through Friday. So that's going to be a complaint, if a complaint investigation, if they're coming like some random time.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like you need like a squad that does like the night runs and goes and does those inspections for probable cause. Okay, let's see here. I'll skip my other question. Jeb asked, where is Texas on the list of between Florida and Massachusetts? Where does Texas rank out on difficulty?
In terms of difficulty, Texas, I think Texas is probably the easiest. And Texas is the easiest, probably out of any state. I think that's why so many investors come here to open. 16 and under in Texas facility, anybody can run. Anybody can run, and then also the inspections are so rare. Inspections happen like they used to be once every 3, now they're once every 2, and then now they're once a year, supposed to be. But Texas is probably the easiest to operate. You
Yeah,
see a
that's-
ton of
that's-
investors actually flock to Texas.
Yeah, that makes sense. Everything's
Mm.
everything in Texas. So Arenz asked it, sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing your name, and I apologize. How hard is Massachusetts? You specifically mentioned Massachusetts is one of the worst, but when you say that, it's not impossible. You just have to know how it works.
No state is impossible. No state is impossible. It just means the requirements to run it. For instance, just example like Virginia, just give me an example. Virginia, in order for you to be assisted living administrator in Virginia, you have to find a preceptor. The preceptors can only take 2 people at a time. But once you find a preceptor, you have to precept in a community that has 20 plus residents. Now, if I've been a nurse working at the hospital, that means I have to leave my job as a nurse at the hospital to go precept for almost, I don't know, maybe 1 year, 1.5. But who really truly wants to do that? Now, the other piece, to find a preceptor, preceptors really only work in big box communities, So the large scale, the way that they work in order to provide, if I'm going to precept you, that means that you have to come back and work for my company for 2 years. So it makes it very tough for anyone, a small business owner, to actually be able to find someone who is an assisted living administrator. If you're a small business owner, if you want, besides that, it's really tough. So it's tough to find administrators. It's tough for anybody to actually be an administrator if you don't want to have to leave where you're going to go work for some other big box community. So in terms of those type of places like that have it like that, so you have Massachusetts. Massachusetts is just tough because the communication and the lack of communication that actually comes from the home office and inspectors. It just makes it almost impossible to get anything done because communication is so vague and so rare, and they're not communication friendly. So it makes it very tough in terms of that.
That's a bummer to hear. And it's a bummer for me because I'm in Virginia to hear that about Virginia. But it is what it is, and you got to roll with the punches, work with what you got, or look elsewhere. And on that note, just zooming out, this call is obviously extremely tactical in this realm. But if we're zooming out and thinking strategically, whether you're going to be the person on the ground at the house, whether you're going to be a manager position or zooming out a little bit as just an owner of the house and looking to hire out these positions or lease to an operator, this is really important to know these tactical things about the nitty gritty of just state inspections, because now you know what is expected of your people, who you hire, who you put into your home, how you are taking care of the residents that are entrusted under your care. So it's just important to understand this and to hear from you, Kimberly. Thank you guys for your time. Thanks for coming back. And we would love to have you again. I put the way you can reach out to Kimberly with her email above in the chat. So reach out to them. Obviously, a wealth of knowledge at the Action Over Words group. So without any further ado, thanks everyone for coming. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Raw Room Assisted Living Podcast. We hope you found today's episode insightful. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave us a rating 5-star review. And a quick review helps more listeners find the show and more seniors get the exceptional care they deserve. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And just so you know, we have prepared some free resources for you to help you succeed in residential assisted living in addition to this podcast. Head over to theralroom.com, that is TheRAL room.com, to download our free 10-step guide to launch your first or next residential assisted living homes, or our 10 reasons to passively invest in residential assisted living ebooks. And if you're ready to take the next step and make real moves in the RAL industry, join us in the Raw Room Mastermind. It is an exclusive community where we deep dive into everything you need to launch and grow your own residential assisted living business. You'll get access to recorded courses, live calls with industry experts, a RAL calculator, resources and tools, like-minded entrepreneurs, funding opportunities, and an expert networking community to help you along your journey. Be sure to join us next time on the Raw Room Podcast as we continue to explore the world of residential assisted living with more great guests. See you then.